Okay, our view of the cathedral dome. Pope John Paul. We used to have the power the President of the United States has today. This church opened in 1993 after 100 years of construction. An idea of how deep the engraving or the work is here, how this was made, how it compares technologically to what Ghiberti did in Florence. No idea. It's bigger, deeper relief. Dramatically modern ceiling. Will this be looked at 500 years from now? 1,000? What will they say then? How will this affect future church architecture? Not quite the huge and, to me, unappealing pillars of the cathedral or church in Granada. Apparently people can wander up there into the altar. That'll be a novel experience for me. This is the dome right above the intersection of the transept and the nave. Here the high altar. Modern stained glass graphics for sure. These are simple pictures which should tell the story simply. This is actually the right transept. And here's the left transept with apparently the choir box up there. Huh. Wish I could remember to get this to Bill Haynes. I appreciate the difference between this modern stained glass and the very old stained glass. Here, almost classical Gothic, except for the detailed art up there. Don't know what he means by the striking 15th century altarpiece, unless it's that crucifix. There is something, quoting Rick, refreshing about this church's modernity. Even this organ looks modern and pretty in its own contrasting style. We gets ushered out of here before Mass. Notice these modern sculptured chapels, including this one. See, these people have a regular business going. They've got their sign all printed up. Some of them have the sign in Spanish, some of them have it Spanish and English. Another entrance into this massive church. Rather simple architecture, really, when you think about it. Here that we just saw, just to orientate ourselves, right opposite the grand courtyard of the Grand Palace, or the Royal Palace. Apparently, first a Moorish castle, then a Christian fortress, and then a Renaissance palace, and then to its current structure built in the 1800s, including this long line apparently to get in. About to begin. If I didn't know any better, I'd swear that was Batman up there. It is Batman. Here they wind down as they slowly lose momentum. Good thing it's masked, because everybody now is deaf and they wouldn't understand it even if they could. This is part of some kind of advertising sign, but I just think that hat is interesting in its era. I was on yesterday at Calle de Bailén, Royal Palace to our left, my hostel to the right. So we're in the arena of pure tack or what? Okay, I finally penetrated the streets and found the Flea Market. Another part of it. There's actually fleet implication-wise. It's just another vending place for people's usual stock and trade. You can find actual novelties and antique things. This looks like the classic flea market. This would accumulate in all those little individual things.
Jefe, ¿cuánto vale la romana esta?
Some simple old architectural detail, 180 euro. These things. Probably people, probably the same place that we're looking at them. Nice picture in basin. I like that tomahawk, the hatchet. Now I think they'll let me take it on the plane. Potato masher or something. I always love these little metal scales. Waiting for the right buyer for what are probably quite expensive items, like those two clocks. matchstick holder maybe, or a candle holder. It gets lots of activity here. Women sorting through to find a good deal on stuff. Smart shopping, really. Trunk's funky thing. Be a nice thing in the hospital to display on the wall. Now, this is just this man's shop, and he puts this stuff out just to sell it and attract attention. You can come here any day of the week and paw through these shops. I'll show you the huge area on the map that's devoted to this flea market, but I think it's an ongoing flea market, just not all outside each day. But now we'll hang a left. And I've been walking back and forth and up and down, just wandering. Go inside, you'll see the same kinds of things, but more concentrated, the more valuable probably. Looks like a tapestry, maybe not. You screw into a wall as hooks or something. Look at the faces on those, are pretty cool. Mind of a lifetime there, but look at her dress, she's got style. We're creating a nifty apartment. Cool locks, holes, and serving, whatever you call those things right there. And another cross intersection, and it just goes both ways. People everywhere. And when you see a stuffed faux rhinoceros, you got to ask yourself, how did I go for 70 years without one? Like most places in the world, if you know where to go, you can find anything you want. Interesting. And if this isn't a tapestry, it looked like it, and it seems to be with the detail, but it may well be a manufactured thing because it can't be expensive. Look a little bit different than it did this morning. Probably now about 1 o'clock. In Plaza Major, the restaurants are packed. Here's a clever business. Been here for some time, I would suspect. But it's a shop in which everything is built right into the wall in the exterior. So all they do is come out, slide up the roll-top desk doors, and they're in business. And the purpose of these assemblies here is this man can fold up his tent and be out of here at the speed of light if the police show up. It's illegally exactly that way it does in Venice. They're set up on a bridge where the tourists are, and the police are one of the types that do that. Will show up and they grab and run. It's interesting, this is a major street, but I wonder what the graphic shows if in fact that we're trying to show something medieval. Across the street here is this extraordinary looking building. You wonder why an American would come all this way. So here I am at the Opera metro station. I'll walk my way back to the hostel, so I'm sure I know how to get there from here. And then I'll continue my Rick Steves walk that I interrupted for the flea market. Okay, interrupted my Rick Steves tour this morning about over there. Now we're going to explore this Plaza de Oriente. There where the concerts were last night. Now just pan through here and then we'll walk through the whole square. This is the next portion of the plaza, decorated with, and I think that's a good choice of words, these statues which purport to be Visigoth kings. They existed before the Muslims took over, but the irony of these statues is they are probably just cement mix and match. In other words, if you look at this particular statue here, you will see that the lower leg is a separate part. There's a seam right there. You can see it running across. Another seam up a little bit farther, but somewhat hidden, I think. Now the Romans were wont to do this also, where they would have a standard statue base and then put different heads on. So the idea of it being decoration, I think, is an appropriate choice of words. But this is a very pretty park, reasonably nicely maintained. You're hearing an instrument played often in the squares in Spain that I've seen, and it looks like a couple of barbecue discs connected somehow, but notice that where he touches and how he touches provides rhythm and tone. It's a lovely fall day. I've got a jacket on because it's just enough of a wind to make it chilly. I'm wandering into the middle of this part of the park towards what looks to be again a grandiose statue, this one made out of brass or whatever. Now Neptune's been in a couple of contexts, and I don't know why it figures somewhat prominently in various cities, including Granada. And the statue and this park surrounded by some lovely buildings. Not terribly over the top. Some quite ordinary. But again, the park's a pretty place to stroll. This was Philip IV, who built the royal palace. The statue itself, at its time that it was built, was considered a achievement in that art because the horse stands on two legs. What Rick says that's interesting is that only due to Galileo's calculations were they able to design this. Does he mean the Galileo? And here the other side, some more Visigoth kings. Here's still a third part of the park that balances out on this side with that statue. We'll see more of it in a moment. This is the opera house that the statued king faces, rebuilt in 1997. Presumably someday I'll look at this video and just jump on the Wikipedia and find out who Luis was. But important enough, and perhaps courageous enough to have warranted all of this. One of the reasons why this is so nicely pedestrianized is you don't see any vehicles because they're all underground. That's where the parking is. And probably some traffic also. The irony of this palace, so huge, just seems to be exactly that. Bigger is better. Back in Plaza Isabella, which has the Opera metro station, which is my metro access contact point. This is Michael Jackson. This is Isabella II, who, like Louis XVI, timed it wrong, but not as badly. She was forced to abdicate and lived her life in exile rather than without her head. This is a small model version of what the Moorish walls were, at least the remains, but where they are and what evidence of them that can be actually seen now, I have no idea. Presumably I'm standing probably about right here, and that building there is presumably that building. So it would have been the wall crossing in front of us, and that portion of the wall crossing in there, but of course there's all been ripped up long ago. I've never been aware of these. I've seen grooved sidewalks like this, I think. The purpose of this was to allow the blind to orientate themselves. Not necessarily to follow it, but just to orientate, I guess. You can feel this go at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so we're standing on Calle de Arenal, which means sand. Notice then, since these are medieval signs for you ignorant ones who can't read, piles of sand. This was a craft of some sort. Calle de Arenal, which goes to Puerto de Sol. Each of these side streets has a sign on it that also reflects a trade that would have been dominant in this on this street. What's interesting, if you go to places like somewhere in Asia, I can't remember right now, but there you will find streets that still today are dominated by certain products or certain crafts. This one produced angels. So this is Calle de las Fuentes. Fuentes means fountain, but I think in this instance what it's referring to when it says fountain are those places where people can fill up. So all I gotta do is find out what a bordador is. This may refer to San Martin. Looks like he's about ready to get sliced and diced. Bookstore has been selling since 1650 books. And those are the churros and the hot chocolate. If it's anything like I had in the other little cafe in the town I went hiking in Granada, it's thick. A little shot of that spectacular, apparently what's French architecture. So here in number 8, we go inside. Has this green front to it. Here in the lobby of this building is Spain's version of Mickey Mouse, Casita Museo de Raton Perez. And he's the equivalent of the Tooth Fairy in the American culture. And apparently there's a nearby little museum here within feet of where I'm at that gives all the history of it for kids. I'm thinking this wall may be such a museum. Raton Perez. Portrait on his own bronze plaque. Here a little bit of street art. Exactly who it portrays, I don't know, but it looks like there's a place for donations. Now back in Puerto de Sol, having completed my Rick Steves walking tour loop, and we're looking at the statue of La Mari Blanca, the equivalent of Venus in Spain.